Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, APPA's new group insurance facility and how to make sure you're insured for importing with Shane Brady. Today, you are listening using your computer speaker system by default. You'll have the opportunity to submit questions to Shane by typing them into the questions pane on the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time. We will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end. MMSE is a joint venture partnership between award-winning insurance broker and director Shane Brady and McLardy McShane Insurance Brokers. The group has approximately 200 staff across 20 offices around Australia and protects over 17,000 clients across Australasia. Shane has extensive experience protecting businesses in the promotional products industry and has enjoyed a number of individual awards and accolades in recent years. In addition to running MMSE, Shane has contributed to the insurance broking industry through his work with the National Insurance Brokers Association and the Australian and New Zealand Institute of Insurance and Finance, ANZIIF, and also formed part of the industry's Careers in Insurance panel in 2015. I will now hand this over to Shane.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ida, and hello everybody, and welcome to our webinar, hopefully the first of many that we'll get to bring to the APPA members. Today we're focusing on the APPA insurance facility, where we're really excited to roll this out to the group and go through the bits and pieces of what the insurance facility is, how it works, and how it can benefit the members of the APPA group. The second part of the webinar, we're going to go over importing. It seems to be a really hot topic at the moment. Obviously, most people would be aware about the wristband issue in the AFL, and it just seems to be a recurring thing that we seem to be addressing for APPA members in the past month or two. So we'll try and keep this nice and short and sharp to about 25 or 30 minutes. Although I love talking about insurance, I'm sure not everybody likes to listen to it for that long. So we'll try and keep it short and sharp. But just to elaborate a little bit on just what Ida was saying before, so McLardy McShane South East, we form part of the McLardy McShane group. McLardy McShane South East, we're a joint venture between myself and my business partner, Don McLardy. So those who are from Victoria or that follow the AFL, you might recognise Don's name. He was the former president of the Melbourne Football Club. He took over from the late Jim Steins back in 2012. So he's my partner in crime for MMSE. And as Ida mentioned, we've got 20 offices across Australia, protecting a whole bunch of clients. And between us, we've got around about 200, 210 staff. And myself in particular have got specific experience in the promotional product industry. So a little bit of a backstory about how I got into this industry. It was probably about 12 odd years ago now, I think about 2008, 2009, that I helped set up the formerly known back then as the Embroid Me group, now known as Fully Promoted, of course. And from there, obviously, branched out into all quarters of the promotional product sector. So we've got a lot of experience, handled countless inquiries, managed dozens and dozens of total loss claims and large and complex claims. And together, we've been able to form a lot of industry-specific experience. So great news for the APPA members. So I just wanted to cover off a little bit about what an insurance broker does, because there are some businesses that are a little bit unclear about our role and what we do for our clients. So the first point we wanted to make is that we always act in your best interest. So whether it's squeezing the insurer for a better rate, negotiating on cover, or trying to settle a claim, everything we do is going into bat for our clients. So we're always on your side. We're not acting for the insurer, we're acting for our clients. Like I mentioned, we fight for the best results and we manage and advocate for you guys in a claim situation. So whether it's just a simple burglary or glass claim, right through to a complex liability issue, we'll always go in and bat for you and advocate for you to get the claim settled with everything that you're entitled to. So let's start off with a couple of the key points about the APPA insurance facility. So firstly, we're really excited about this. We've been chipping away at putting this together for some time, and we're really excited to roll it out to the APPA members and announce the bits and pieces that go with it. So first and foremost, it is an exclusive facility for just the APPA members. So if you're not part of the APPA group, you're not eligible for cover under the facility. It's just for you guys. And it's APPA's first dedicated insurance facility. So what a facility is a collection of clients that are put together and that we use as leverage with an insurance company. And it's a structure that we've set up for other groups and associations in the past. So we've taken the best bits of the other deals that we've done over the years and we've put it all together to come up with the APPA facility. And what it does is it harnesses the size and the leverage, the collective leverage that the APPA members have got. And we're using it to the individual members' advantage. And one thing that we always like to compare it to is the whole Bunnings cliche. So if you go into Bunnings and you buy a single hammer, you're going to pay retail price or full price. You're not going to be getting any special discounts or treatment. You're buying a single hammer. But if you go to Bunnings as part of a large group and buying 1,000 hammers, obviously you're going to get treated a little differently. You get access to wholesale or trade rates. And it's that sort of attitude that we use when putting together facilities such as this. We use everybody's leverage for the individual member's advantage. Most importantly, the cover that's included in the facility, and I'll go through a little bit about what that is in just a second, but it is tailored specifically to the promotional products industry. And together with our experience, we know how the industry works. We know how the distributors, suppliers, the decorators, all the jigsaw pieces fit together. And we know the risks and exposures the clients in this sector face. So we've used all of that to tailor the facility specifically for you guys. So you might be asking, well, what are the benefits? So the most important thing, and we might get a little bit off track here, but this is an important point, that when you are placing an insurance policy or program for a business, the most important thing is to make sure that you're described to the insurer accurately for exactly what it is that you do. And that's something that we've taken into consideration with the facility. We've got a really broad business description. So there's absolutely no doubt what the insurance policy is there to cover. And I've put the descriptions down in the bottom left-hand corner. You can see it on your screen there, but the broad business description is a really important point because if you note in there, you'll see import and export, which is a really important point to make, and we'll cover off that in about 10 or 15 minutes. But there's automatic cover for imports. Again, it's a really hot topic. It seems to be something we're speaking about to APPA members all the time. And it's got the most competitive premiums that we were able to find in the entire market. So a little bit about the process, about how this facility came to be. We went out to a panel of insurers, and I think off the top of my head, it was probably about 10 or 11 different insurers, and we put the proposition to them about what an APPA facility could look like and asked them what they were willing to give us and for the benefit of the members. We went through a bit of a process, lots of negotiation, and we obviously took into consideration all the different insurers' rates and their premiums, and we've come up with this facility, which we believe is the most competitive premiums that we're able to get. So the important point there is that even if the facility, for whatever reason, if you've got different activities or do something a little outside the box, if the premiums under the facility didn't quite match what we could get from another insurer, as brokers, we've got access to the entire market. So we've always got the option to negotiate a policy or a program that suits you specifically. And as I mentioned, it's the group leverage that's the main power in all of this. So we've got the power to use everybody's collective influence to make sure that the insurance company does what we want them to do and to do that in your best interests. And the most important point about the claims is that you're not impacted by each other's claims. So one mistake that we've seen in the past when these types of arrangements are put together is that people want to put everybody into the same bucket, and it lives and dies on its own sword. So if you have one member within the group that has a huge loss and it impacts the claims ratios for the facility, that can sometimes impact the other members that haven't had the claim. And that's an unfair structure. And it's something that we were specific on with the insurer, that we don't want claims from some businesses impacting others within the group. So we segregate that out and better for the individual members. So how to get some advice from us and a quote. So there's two really easy ways. We can either get to know you guys here and now, or to do it upon renewal. So the first option there on renewal, if we are able to get in touch with you about a month prior, we can go through the process, have a look at the cover that you've got, go through a review to see what you need, and then quote you guys under the facility. Or if you're concerned that your insurance program isn't quite right, or you haven't checked it for a little while and you think that it could use a bit of a health check, we are constantly doing reviews of programs whilst the insurance policy is in place. So if you've got something you want to talk to us about, get in touch with us. We can do it on the spot and give you our advice and our guidance as to what cover you've got, whether it's any good, whether it's at a good rate, or whether there's a better option for you out there. So I thought I would just touch on a little bit about the typical insurance program for a standard APPA member, whether you're a distributor or a supplier decorator, or doing other activities. The typical structure that we see is public liability, obviously a really important point. Property cover, so if you're operating from an office or you carry stock, or if you're a supplier decorator, you're going to have machinery, it could be embroidery equipment, printers, etc. That falls under property cover. But a really important point, and something that we're really quite sharp on, is cyber insurance. So a lot of people probably don't know or appreciate what the risks are that relates to cyber, but it could be examples of your website being hacked or taken down or not in operation for a certain period of time. And for some businesses, that can be really crippling. So if you imagine yourself, you're at your laptop in the morning, you open up an email and open an attachment, and it contains a virus and it freezes up your entire computer. And those sorts of things are really debilitating situations, and can often make the client feel a little bit lost and not sure what to do. But that is the intention of cyber insurance, is to protect you from those cyber type situations. So it's things like hacking. We've also had examples of where, extortion, cyber extortion, where a client has been hacked and they're asking for Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. And these sorts of things causes a huge strain on a business and can really interrupt you for quite a long period of time, weeks on end in some situations. So cyber has been a real focus for us. We've done plenty of cyber cover in the past. It's a relatively new type of product in the market. It's probably been around for 5 or 6 years now, but it is becoming increasingly popular, and in particular for the promotional product sector, where you're operating largely from websites or relying on traffic coming to your business from your website. You can suffer quite the loss, even if it's immeasurable. Just interruptions and time spent trying to get all your files back is something that an insurance policy can help you with. The fourth one is marine transit. So whether you're importing from overseas, bulk consignments or big shipments, or whether it's just sending products domestically interstate, even to the next suburb, goods whilst in transit can be covered under what's called a marine transit policy. So together, those 4 policies form what we would say is the typical insurance program for an APPA member. Of course, if you're doing activities that are a little bit different, or we identify that you've got risks in other areas, there's lots of other policies and options that we can add in to tailor it specifically for you. But overall, those are the 4 main things. And just, if I can just go back to the property cover for just 1 second, the property cover, it's often a business package. So it's a collection of different risks all put together under a business package. And that could be things like cover for your contents and stock, business interruptions. So if you are a decorator or a supplier and your factory or your warehouse burns down, you're obviously going to suffer an interruption. That can be covered under property cover. There's burglary cover. There's a whole range of different things that go with a business package. But we can talk a little bit more about that and what suits you guys specifically if you reach out and get in touch. So just touching on the importing, and it's most important to make sure you've got your product liability cover right. And putting together this webinar over the last few weeks, it came at a really timely point in time where the AFL has just gone through their own product recall and issues with imported products. So those that haven't caught up on the news, the AFL obviously held their grand final in Brisbane. As part of the promotion, they ordered about 31,000, I'm sure it was, wristbands that light up as part of the halftime entertainment. I'm led to believe, and I'm not, this is unconfirmed, but I'm sure that they were imported from overseas. And shortly after the grand final was held, there was an urgent recall issued by Product Recall Australia, the governing body. Because of the battery pack, it could come loose and cause potential injury or death to young children that came into contact with it. So these types of product recalls are relatively common. It just so happened to be right before our webinar on importing and product liability, but it really just put the spotlight on your industry in particular and the risks that lots of businesses face in all different types of industries. But for you guys in particular, where you're importing products into Australia, it is absolutely vital that you've got your product liability cover right, because if that had have been you and the wristbands was on your watch, so to speak, having the right insurance cover in place is so important to make sure that you're not out of pocket and you're well protected from what is anticipated to be some legal action for that company. So to check that you've got the right product liability cover. So in such an interconnected world, importing is so common. We know that, particularly for promotional products. So we see a lot of product come in from China, but there's a lot of other countries now starting to nip at China and get a little bit of that market share. But importing, it's nearly every business would do it at some point or another, whether it's regular or not. So the most important thing, if you are importing, is for members to check that you've got proper product liability protection for the products that you're bringing into Australia. There's a really good reason for it, and that is you can be found what's called the deemed manufacturer of goods. So where you're importing products from a company that isn't locally represented here in Australia, through the eyes of the law, you're deemed the manufacturer of those goods. So you are taking responsibility that those goods are up to Australian standards for a start, that they're safe, and that you're taking all the risk if they cause injury or damage to a third party, which is why it's so important. The product liability is set up correctly. So if a liability does arise, you're well protected. Now, just a little bit about what a product liability is, because some people can get a little bit confused with all the different liabilities out there. But a public and products liability policy covers you for public liability and product liability. So both of those things need to be triggered by either third-party injury or third-party property damage. So the easiest way to know what your public and products liability policy covers is that if you injure somebody else or you damage someone else's goods, you should automatically think public and products liability policies. Products in particular, so you could have products that could potentially cause injury or damage, if they're battery operated, for example, and accidentally catch fire, or it's got faulty wiring, or a little piece breaks off and a little child gets injured from that little piece. All of these are determined to be what's called products liability. And what generally happens in those situations, especially if the situation is serious enough, is that you can be found legally liable for that damage or for that injury. So a public and liability policy protects you from those liabilities by firstly defending your liability. So paying things like the legal costs involved, attending court, all the bits and pieces that come with a complex liability issue, and also indemnifies you where you're found legally liable for that injury or damage. So if it is determined that, I'll use an example, ABC Promotions, if their products were the ones that caused the injury and that they are liable at law, your insurance policy will indemnify that liability to the third party. And there's no doubt it is a complex type of cover, but it's certainly a cover that is integral for every single business out there, regardless of your industry. And it's a really good tool to make sure that you're not out of pocket or uninsured for risks like that. So getting on to the next slide. The most important thing is that importing needs to be noted specifically on your policy for you to be properly insured for importing. So there has been situations in the past, and it seems to be a common theme the last 6 weeks. I think off the top of my head, we've probably fixed 4 or 5 members' insurance programs where they were importing products from overseas. It wasn't on their policy, and their policy didn't cover them for the product liability that could arise from imported products. So to avoid any doubt whatsoever, you need importing to be shown on your policy schedule. So it's not enough to just tell your broker or your insurer that you import. You want to see the word importing in your business description, so there's no doubt that the insurer knows you're bringing in product from overseas and distributing it here in Australia. So that is the most important point. So if anyone takes anything out of this on the importing point, it is to hunt down your paperwork, have a quick look at your business description, so what the insurer thinks they are covering you for. And if you don't see the word importing on there and you import products, whether it's stationery or diaries or children's toys, which is cringe. I cringe to think about people importing children's toys without proper liability cover. But if you don't have that word on your policy, please reach out. We would love the opportunity to help get it right, get the cover set so you can forget about the liabilities that can arise from imported products. So, in summary, the APPA insurance facility. So, for you guys, it's got lots of different benefits. It's got the broad business description, as I mentioned. It's got the best premium rates that we can find in the insurance market. As general brokers, we're able to still source quotes from other insurers if the facility doesn't match pricing that we can get elsewhere. But as brokers, we are there to hunt for the best possible arrangement for members. But we are very, very confident that facility provides that 99 times out of 100. And to get your cover right and set up properly, we can either do it on the spot. Now you can email us copies of your schedules, or you can ring up and have a chat to us, or we can do it upon renewal. So if your insurance policies are due in April next year or May next year, even just a quick email to say, "Hi Shane, we're due next May, let's chat prior to." We'll chuck a note in the diary and we can get in contact with you then. But if you are concerned in any way that you don't have the right cover, or even if it's been a little while since you've had a look at what you've set up, please get in contact with us. We would love the opportunity to help more of the members. We've been doing it for a long, long time now, but would welcome all members to get in touch with us and help support the facility to get it even bigger and stronger. Because as more members join the facility and as we get a larger leverage and influence over the insurer, the better the benefits are going to be for the individual members. So as it continually grows, we will continually negotiate and then renegotiate with the insurer to make sure that we are absolutely on top of the best possible deal that we can get for you guys. And the last point, in summary, importing needs to be specifically noted on your policy. So if there's only one thing that you take away from this, is that if you import, make sure it is noted on your policy. It's the most important thing. But I'm not sure if anyone has registered any questions. I haven't checked the chat box yet, but that's basically it, guys. It was short and sharp. We just wanted to get the APPA facility news out to the group. We're super excited about it. We'll hopefully get a copy of this webinar out to the rest of the members that couldn't join us here today. And the more momentum we get, the bigger and better the facility will be, and the better the benefits for the individual members. So thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Ida, I'm not sure if we've got any questions yet, but yeah, please fire away if you've got any questions.
Thank you, Shane, for this informative presentation, and welcome on board as our newest service provider.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so there appears to be a couple of questions that have come through. So the first one is, do MMSE arrange any other types of insurance outside of promotional product business insurance?
Yeah, we do actually, Ida. So we do all sorts of commercial insurance, whether it's the promotional products industry or not. As part of the McLardy McShane group, we've got things like life and income protection divisions, so we can do all that side of the insurance as well. We can do home and motor, so domestic type of insurance. Farm, agriculture, anything and everything you can think of, we can facilitate in one way or another. And promotional products, although our speciality, we can definitely accommodate for any other type of insurance that members have got as well.
That's great. And secondly, what happens when there is a liability from a product I have sourced locally in Australia? Am I liable, or can the claim be put onto my supplier?
Good question. Okay, so the way that it works when you've sourced products locally, so if you've got product from an Australian-based manufacturer or supplier and you're selling it or altering it and then putting it out into the Australian market, the situation can be really quite simple. If that product causes injury or damage, the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to go to the person that sold or provided that to that person. So if that's, we'll use ABC Promotions again. ABC Promotions were the ones that gave 1,000 pens and staplers out to distribute in an expo. If that stapler or pen causes an injury or damage, ABC Promotions are going to be the first company that's in the crosshairs, so to speak. So your liability cover will need to respond. You'll need to defend yourself, even if the fault isn't your own. So even if it's found that, I don't know, the pen wasn't up to scratch and you weren't to know, but you were the one that sold it, your liability is going to be the one that responds first and foremost. And then once the liability is settled or it goes through the courts, if there's a chance to recover from the manufacturer, your insurer will do that in the background. So important again that the liability cover is right, because no matter if it's your product specifically or it's somebody else's, if you're the one who's distributed that product, you're going to be the first one that's going to be asked to pay from the third party. So that's why it's so critical to have the liability cover structured right so it responds, and any recoveries that happened afterwards is up to the insurers to settle. So even if it's not your fault, your insurance program needs to be structured right.
Thank you for answering that. And thank you to the participants that submitted those questions. Now, there doesn't appear to be any more. However, if any questions do come to mind for Shane after the presentation, please send them through to shane@mclardymcshane.com.au. Over the coming days, you will receive a follow-up email with a link to view today's recording, and I'll also include Shane's email address as part of that email. So on behalf of Shane Brady and APPA, thank you for all our participants in joining us today, and I hope you all have a great afternoon.
Appreciate it, Ida. Thanks, guys. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks again, Shane.
Bye-bye.